Hey, what's going on? It's your boy Joe Thunder back once again with another episode of the Smoking Joe Thunder podcast. Real quick, I want to shout all y'all out real quick for listening and subscribing and commenting and just giving us a fair chance and listening to all this culture and history that we're bringing you. But real quick, got to shout out Be Good Dispensaries. You know, they're our official sponsor. You can find them over there on 11 West Hampden in Inglewood, or if you're up north, you can find them on 120th across the highway from Boondocks. They got the best marijuana, you know, all your needs that you need, dab, marijuana, edibles, you name it, they got it. But as you know, we got another banger for you today, you know what I'm saying? We got a big time, you know, ganja, you know, dab, concentrate, rosin, smoker. You know, he's a smoker, he's a painter, you know what I mean? He's a grower. You know what I mean? Been bombing freights for, man, how long? 20 years?
Like
a little more,
16.
right? 16. All right.
16
I was giving you a couple, you know what I'm saying?
I've been painting them for a while, but probably 16 full years.
All right, we got motherfucking Soja in the house. What's good with you, brother?
What up?
How you doing?
Very high.
We are high, huh?
But not really. It's just like a meditation.
Right, we're just getting primed up to get into this. You know what I mean? This podcast, kind of let them know what's going on because we got a lot of shit to talk about, right?
Right.
So how you been, man? How you been? Yeah.
Good.
Life been treating you good?
Yeah, been blowing glass lately, a little more by trade, and it feels good. It feels good to be like back on some shit.
Now, when you say blowing glass, like making rigs.
Yeah. Making rigs again.
Making like, do you make bongs, or I mean, can you make a bong?
I could. About the size, like 6 inches tall is about where I max out as far as like the equipment I have. But yeah, just making rigs and marbles and pendants again and staying busy. So it feels good.
The hustle's strong, right?
Yep. One of the many avenues that I tap into. But yeah. Good. How about you, man?
Not too bad, man. Just kind of nice and high, you know what I mean? Just grinding every day, trying to make that dollar, you know?
Right.
Make shit easier in my life, you know?
Yep.
Staying up high. So, I mean, we're already 5,280 feet above sea level, so I'll probably be about 10,582 feet every day, you know what I mean?
You ever smoke at sea level?
Yeah, wherever I go.
It's crazy. You don't get as stoned. It's weird.
Like I said, I just smoke so
We're
much.
Used to it up here. It's different.
It was different in Cali because it was like it was like last time I went was about 3 months ago, and the homie just had like when I say the cheapest weed, like it was just the cheapest weed, like, and it was cheap, but it was like an ounce for like $25.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? We're out there already trying to save money. You know how that shit goes.
For sure.
And I took some out there with me. What happens? I usually take it out there with me, but this time I was high and only took half of it out there with me. So I took a half ounce instead of a whole ounce.
Yeah.
And I went through that shit quick, you know?
Yeah, which happens when you're on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can't find it as good. Like, it's kind of rough.
Well, I mean, you know, in Cali you can find it, but I'm not trying to pay those crazy prices. And the homie just said, he's like, I got this outdoor shit. He's like, it's everywhere. He's like, I'll give you for $20 an ounce. I was like, really? I was like, hold on. I was like, let's go get some fucking Fronte Grava leaves.
It's probably pretty good, though.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. And we just blazed.
Sunherb is good.
Yeah, we just blazed crazy blunts, bro, the whole time I was there. And like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Went through probably 2 of them. I don't even know. Hey, well, check it out. Being this is like your first time here, man, kind of tell me a little bit about yourself, man, who you are, what you do, because you do a bunch of things, shit.
So, yeah, like I've been growing trees just out of like wanting to not pay for it, as you just stated.
Right.
You know,
especially those crazy prices.
Yeah.
Would you ever pay $80 an eighth for some cookies?
No, not in this present time. But, you know, it's crazy. When I was in high school, there was a strain that was popular, AK-47.
Right.
$60 an eighth. People paid without even batting an eye, though. And now it's like, it's surprising because it's totally a marketing thing now. But like back then, it was just people being stingy. They were like, I'm not breaking on prices at all.
Right. They might even short you a half a gram or a gram.
Totally.
And I remember
using like the hand scale. They're like,
I remember cats like
legit.
in Albuquerque, like they had the best weed ever, bro, and they would like kind of short you, and like they were like, "We'll just take it back." You know what I mean? I don't give a fuck. Like,
First time I ever went to New York, this dude pulled me into a room and was like, "Yo, don't talk to your homie about how much I'm giving you," because I'd never give him like the full amount. he's like, I know you're from Colorado, and I know you know what an eighth is, so like, just keep that on the low. Like, some people just short people, and they're like, whatever, like, nobody will know.
Right. Being that you're a weed head like me, dog, do you remember, like, maybe the first couple kinds of strands of chronic or high grade? Like you said, AK-47. I remember cat piss.
So, sour diesel for sure. That was a staple.
That was my favorite, bro.
Maui
And
Wowie, Alaskan Thunderfuck.
Sour D is my favorite.
Dude, sour diesel was a banger.
But my thing with that
for so many years and was so happy. Like,
you'll never get good sour diesel ever again, though.
Yeah, that's what sucks.
You'll never, unless somebody actually grows it.
What changed is everybody went with what was hype and popular, so everything that was a staple kind of faded. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even a reason behind just what was current. You know, like, so growing, when I first started, I had like 250 watt light going, which is just small light. And it was 6 plants just growing from my head, and sustained with that. And then I started having extra and just was like, all right, maybe I should do this a little bigger. But yeah, like, I grew out.
What were the first couple strains that you grew?
Sour diesel for sure. Northern Lights 5. And Skunk 1. Shit. And Sweet Tooth. And then these homies of mine had this strain going, Mama San,
okay,
which was like a staple of this town that I grew up in. And finally got a cut of that because of however, and grew that for a while. And those did really well. And then I started getting into like genetics more and realizing that there was like people doing serious breeding and like making their own things, and started really like tapping into like what was out there. But then to now, everything has changed so much. Like, it's interesting because back then people were breeding very seriously. Like, they would crossbreed certain things. Like,
can you give an example? Yeah.
So normally, or by the book, how I was taught when I was younger and first growing, which is now 18 years ago, was basically you would cross something and then take those children or phenos and then cross them back with what you created it from, which would be creating your F1s, F2s, and so on. So currently, and how a lot of strains are created now, is you take a mom and a dad or other forms and cross them, and then take that F1 and just run with it, and that's like your new strain.
The main one, yeah.
So you don't really stabilize anything. So as a grower, you find problems, which like plants will turn into a hermaphrodite or not produce the same way as you're expecting, or have certain traits of strains that like
you don't want.
Really want. Yeah, exactly.
What would be that? Can you tell me?
Now,
like,
you would want something that is going to produce, for me personally, rosin. But back then it was weight. Everything was like, as like a hurdle or like a staple or like a standard of growing back then was like, how much can you grow per watt, or like how much pounds per light you could produce. So now it's more so how much rosin you could produce percentage wise of how much wet weight you have. So like you're gonna want excuse me, you're gonna want strains that are gonna produce like ideally 6% hash of your total harvest. And when I was first starting out, you were definitely wanting to just produce flower to smoke. Like, it wasn't even that deep yet. People were just growing to just have weed.
Right.
Like, it's crazy how far it's come.
And like I said, from what I've known from you is from back in the day, you're probably like one of the first people to ever dab. Right?
Maybe. Probably in the circle that you were a part of, but not amongst the people that I hung out with.
Right.
It was shown to me for sure. But it was crazy because it was shown to me at such a weird time where like I was already doing hot knives.
Right. And we talked about that. Yeah, I remember doing hot knives in college.
So I met these kids that had glass hot knives. Like they took it a step further.
Yeah, that's wild.
Then they had this apparatus to hit the hash with. It was a glass apparatus. So I was like mind blown, and that's what put me in the mindset of like, damn, who's doing this? Like this has to be a custom piece that these kids made, and it turned out it was. And so that's what pushed me to want to blow glass. Is I was like, how is this happening? How did these kids have this thing made? Because usually you would just use like your stove and knives and like a cardboard tube, and or like a Mountain Dew bottle cut off of the bottom.
Use the thing for the big napkins.
Yeah, like not even really putting forth much effort. And these kids had like a water apparatus to hit hot knives with. So I was like, all right, this is for me.
They're on to something.
I'm switching to hash only. And that's actually when I became, as I say, a dabitarian and just like left flower behind.
You don't smoke it at all, though? No exceptions or what?
I do make some exceptions for like very serious occasions or like occurrences in my life, but not usually anymore. But I definitely put down like pounds in my day. Just like king size joints over and over again all day. That's all that was hanging out of my mouth when I was like really smoking weed. And then blunts. And it's crazy because like I was smoking blunts, like Philly blunts.
Right. So
many of those, and that's so bad for you.
No, definitely.
But I mean, I was introduced to blunts by this dude that lived below me from New York, right? And he, for some reason, would seal the blunt with cognac.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that was like brand new to me, but I thought it was like a cool way to get stoned. So I started smoking blunts, and I was like, all right.
I'm sure you smoked the honey blunts, right?
Yeah, totally. After that, but that was like my first introduction. I was like, all right, never smoked a blunt before.
My first introduction, bro, was this cat from Alabama.
Yeah.
And he showed me how, he's like, we roll blunts down in Alabama, homie. He's some white dude, and he showed me how to roll a blunt.
Nice.
I was like, all right. And then kids came out. And everyone learned how to roll a blunt, right?
Right. That movie's rugged.
Yeah, for real.
It's crazy to grow up on that type of like footage of a film versus like what people have now. You know, it's crazy.
No, for real. Now, I mean, yeah, it's a whole different ballgame now.
Yeah, that shit was raw.
You know?
I was actually kind of nervous and scared by that movie. It worked. You know what I mean? Like some of those scenes are so fucked up that you're like, I definitely don't want to be that.
It can happen just like that easy, you know? Yeah, for sure.
Definitely.
Hey, so you said you kind of grew up in Golden, right?
Yeah, in that area.
How was that growing up in Golden?
It was kind of crazy, honestly. Like, I lived right across from a trailer park, so there was a lot of stuff going on that I didn't really understand at that time. There'd be people, like, getting murdered and stuff, and, like...
Oh, damn.
Cops would be looking for people through there, and, like, just fucked up shit that I didn't really, like, grasp. Like, my neighbors across the street got, like, raided by, like, a full SWAT team. They, like, opened all their walls and stuff, found all this, like, guns, and...
Shit.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy over there. Like, a lot of people think that Golden is, like, really, like, uppity.
I was going
to
say, you wouldn't think about it was going down like that up there.
No, but it is. It's crazy. There's a lot of drug use over there and, like, a lot of shady shit that happens. And then there's, like, the very nice part of Golden.
Right.
Which, like, is closer to Boulder and not any of that. It's so weird. It's, like, a paradox. Because, like, right now, there's still trailer parks over there that are, like, not the best place you want to be. You know.
What kind of music were you like listening to when you were growing up? You were in middle school and high school. What were you into?
It's crazy because you mentioned the Beastie Boys, and that was it. Like that was a huge jump off for me. And then like Wu-Tang, I would always skateboard with my friend and listen to those type of tapes. And Naughty by Nature, I was like given my first rap tape by my mom. If you would believe it.
It was Naughty by Nature?
Yeah. She was like an advocate to like be the like friend So she was like, oh yeah, you could listen to all this rap music, like all the stuff with parental warning, like it was funny. But yeah, Naughty by Nature, they actually had some good stuff aside from what was like top 10.
No, they did Uptown Anthem's one of my favorite. Remember on the Juice soundtrack?
Yeah.
With that hard beat with Tupac in the video?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Hell yeah. When did you kind of start getting into graffiti and writing?
Mostly probably just like when my brother was in the military and then I had a brother that passed away. I started just like taking out the aggression of that onto surfaces. I was just like super hurt, so I just took out those feelings onto painting walls and then realized it was a lot more than just like being destructive. 'Cause then I started like seeing peers in my high school.
Mm-hmm. So this was going on during high school?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, actually, that happened after high school. So I had influence in high school that I never really like did it. So there was these kids that I used to get trees from.
Right.
They used to rep IWS Crew, which is like an old Denver thing. And they used to be in this like special program in my high school that I used to kick it with them.
Right.
And I would always see them doing graffiti and like kind of picked up on it and like the books and like subway art and, you know, things like that, but never really like knew that it was like a whole culture, a whole thing.
Until later.
Until quite a bit later. Like I was just being dumb and with a can. Like I got in trouble a couple times. Had to do like 180 hours community service one time at this place, which I'm not going to say the name because you can actually grease the wheels in certain situations like that, which I had found out from a dude that I was plugged in. He was like, yeah, if you just offer this lady like $1 per hour, she'll just let your hours slide. And sure enough, I got those 120 just written off. She was like, I could use a different pin to make it look more real if you want. And I was like, all right. You've obviously done this many times.
Did you give her any money or?
Yeah, I paid her extra. I gave her a tip plus, so it was like $1 an hour. Right. On the books, and because she wasn't trying to be rich off of it. It was really cool. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe that like existed at my at the time. But yeah, I had gotten in trouble doing graffiti, and after,
was this in Golden?
It was over in Green Mountain. Okay. It was fucked up. I was painting an electrical box, and this plow driver wanted to just be like a hero, right? Right. So it's snowing super hard. There's like inches on the ground, and I was walking back to my car, and this plow driver like came at me head on, trying to just stop me, and he wrote down my plate and chased me down.
Oh, he did the most.
Oh, it was fucked up, man. Like I don't know why people want to just be heroes, but I guess it's like human intuition or something. I don't know.
Well, on the last podcast we talked about this. One of the main rules is never park by the spot.
Oh no, it was like 5. Oh. Like he like circled the block and followed me and like.
Oh, so yeah, okay.
It was really odd. I felt like it was the universe definitely checking me, which is like something that I agree with. You know what I mean? Like sometimes the universe will just like do things to intervene in what you're used to or what you're currently doing, and yeah, you just gotta go with it. It was crazy.
And that's when you were kind of like out in the streets, kind of just taking out your aggression, you said, huh?
Yeah, and then I started like through the dude that I mentioned that I was plugged into. He actually wrote Immense back in the day, EMNC IWS Crew. He used to be really plugged in with a lot of things, and I would get fronts from him, so I was always kicking it with him, and he had been hanging out with this dude Lens, and at the time that's what dude wrote. He writes something else now, but yeah, he was getting weed from him, and like we both kind of related, like, yeah, graffiti's cool. Right. And he had already been catching freights, so I was like, all right, yeah, like you want to go paint sometime? And then I realized that it was like a culture because I kept seeing some of the same names. Like I would just see people, especially I would see this dude Riot that had already passed away, and I was like, damn, like this is crazy because you could be gone and your art
still up. How'd you kind of come up with your name?
So, as I said, like my brother, he's an Air Force pilot, and
that's crazy, bro. That your brother like be flying jets, like bombing motherfuckers.
Two different paths. Yeah.
Damn.
So I'm over here at Dread, and he's over here. I won't say his rank, but he's a highly ranking official in the Air Force, and he is.
Are y'all cool?
Yeah, we're cool as we can be.
Right.
I think he thinks I'm a liability. So like he keeps his distance,
right?
And I feel like that's just because he's military, you know what I mean? So yeah, he is a member of the military forces. So I was like, you know what, I'm not a member of that at all. I'm a member of, JA Army, and so soldier of JA Army is soldier of JA Army Soja,
right.
And basically what that is, like a Rasta stance, and in some reggae music you can hear that reference. There's actually a big reggae band that goes by Soja.
Okay.
Before they were big, I met them at Cervantes.
Right, I was gonna say, have you ever tried to meet them and try to tell them to fucking you can do some
Yeah, so it was crazy. Like I had a bunch of flicks. I keep documentary of everything I've done.
Yeah.
Which is kind of on some like nerd shit. But yeah, basically I showed them a bunch of flicks of like what I had already started painting, and they were cool. They were into it. One of the like head dudes was like too busy trying to pull ladies and stuff, but yeah, they were chill about it. But after that, they've posted me on their page and stuff, but we've never linked up after that or anything, because I never really had an interest. Like they didn't really seem like they were too into what I was doing, so I'm not one to like chase that.
No, for real, I got you. How'd you get down with the Rasta shit stuff?
It's kind of a deep story, basically, to be honest. And a lot of people might think it's like some like foo-foo, like hoo-ha, like, unbelievable type thing. Sorry, I always forget that I'm like talking to you.
No, you're fine,
not
bro.
Just like to your room. My bad. That's how stoned I am, and those other things. So, basically, I was already a Dread, right? And things weren't going well at my parents. So I moved out. I moved out of my house at 17, got my own place. I was living in this apartment complex, and this dude who I grew up with was my plug as a swag plug, right? If you remember what swag was.
Yeah, that read you.
So this dude was balling so tough on swag that he had gotten an Audi out of it. Like he was moving things, right? I didn't know it. He got busted. Local authorities came to his house. He was growing that AK.
Okay.
And his dad turned out being a postal worker. So he rolled over on a lot of people. And one of them was me. And I got raided at 18 years old. Fucking West Metro Drug Task Force came to my house. Thought I had a bunch of things. Definitely didn't have it like that.
Right.
Like, it was crazy though, because here's the thing. It's like kind of a weird story. So, day before, we're having a session. And at the time, Roar was a company. I don't know if you know about that. So Roar was a bong company that used to be popular at the time. It was like the only company at the time that had these ground joints.
Okay.
So it was like the first company pushing that, and they call them glass on glass joints. And basically, they were super rare. And my homie and I were smoking out of one, and my cat at the time jumped up on the table and wrapped its tail around the bong, right? Broke the bong. I felt super bad about it. I was like hella fucked up. Like I was like, damn, dude, this is really messed up. Like my cat did that. He didn't want anything back. He was like, it's cool. Your cat broke it. I don't care. Whatever. But I was like, dude, it's a like $500 mistake. Like I'm not gonna just let it slide. So we went to the head shop the next day, the day I got raided, and I ended up buying him a piece, right, to replace it. So when I got raided, they came in and they had these notebooks of $20 bills that they had photocopied of money that the swag plug was buying herb from me with. So he would come into town, and I thought he was a homie. He would just be like, yo, I need some trees. Let me come through. And I let him come through.
Right.
And he was totally setting me up on like multiple occasions. And what was crazy about it is somehow along the way, I spent that money. And I think it was on that bong. I'm pretty damn sure it was on the bong.
Right.
Because when they hemmed me up, they had all my money that I had on me in person, which was my re-up, and none of it was in there. So, day after, this dread from below me, it was a 2-story complex.
Mm-hmm.
He saw it all happen. Because when I got raided, they were knocking on the door like a homie knock.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, the homie's here.
Right.
That dude Nice was actually with me when it happened. So we go answer the door, and it was guns blazing in the face with like a piece of paper saying, oh, this is a raid. Get down on the ground. Like, so this Rasta dude seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, how are you here? Like, how did you escape the fire? And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, did you just roll over on somebody? Like, how did you not get locked up?
Right.
Because he was older than me, way older, and he saw something. He was like, dude, something's not right. And I told him everything that happened, like I just told you.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, man, you got somebody watching over you. He's like, there's a reason why you're a dread, but you should look into what you're really doing with your life and tap into what's going on, because nobody just walks away from that the way you did. They had you set up, and they did. Like, they legit had me. They had been watching my house for like 7 days. They raided me on December 13th, Friday the 13th.
Did they get anything? I mean, sure.
So I had a quarter of weed, right?
Okay. That ain't shit.
At the time, it was a drug and alcohol class.
Right.
But they were all excited when they asked. They were like, how much weed you got here? I was like, a quarter. Like, a quarter ounce or a quarter pound? I was like, a quarter ounce. Like,
right. What are you talking about?
Yeah. But that's all they got, and then they took all my money, which I actually got back. It was fucked up.
So they just kind of like thought you had a gang of weight and you didn't really have shit on you.
So the dude said I had a bunch of weed, ecstasy, and coke, which I think he was just so far in it that he just tried to roll over on me any way he could. You know what I mean? Because like I said, his dad was a postal worker, so it was like he probably was facing a lot. You know?
Right.
And he had a full grow going, so at the time, this was in like early 2000s, so they threw the book at him, I'm sure. And yeah, I actually looked him up not too long ago just as like curiosity, and he's not even in the country, which would make sense because he rolled over on some pretty big people, like supposedly swag plug and all that shit.
Right.
So yeah, it's fucked up. But yeah, actually, so that put me on to something. I was like, all right, wise Rasta dude, I guess I'll take what you're telling me out of nowhere, because I would see him all the time, just walking around the neighborhood, you know, and I'd like hail him up, try and see if he wanted to smoke or anything, and he had no interest. He probably thought I was just like another dready imposter kid, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh. So that's when you kind of start taking it serious, huh?
Yeah, I was like, all right, maybe he's right, like, because I was very reckless before that. I didn't think I had a path, you know? I was like, whatever.
What do you mean by reckless?
Just like being in the rave scene. And
did you graduate? No. You drop out of high school?
Yeah.
And was it because
I got my GED, and it was because of weed.
Okay.
So every day, pretty much every day, I'd get like sweated by the people in the high school. Like, hey, you smell like weed, come down to the office. And I just got sick of it. I was like, I can't keep coming here
dealing with this shit.
Yeah, so I just got my GED. But being reckless at the time, like the rave scene was really popping, and I was definitely moving a lot of things in. So
now, when you say the rave scene, are we talking like the early rave scene where you had to call a number and call another number?
So check this out. It was like that. People talk about it and like
I remember
reminisce.
that shit. I remember that shit.
As an older cat, you know. So it was. You would call a number, and they wouldn't tell you where it was until like maybe sometimes 20 minutes before. we'd be bugging out like, damn, where is it? Where is it?
Driving around.
How are we even gonna get there? And then they'd tell you because they didn't want any authorities coming. But a couple times, like, we were up in the mountains so far away, like way before like clubs or raves were in warehouses or anything like that. It was like on the low. It's crazy.
And I could say I've never been to a rave that's been raided. Have you?
Yeah. So we were up in like way past Nederland, right?
Yeah.
And
that's 36, right?
Yeah, up past like Boulder a little bit, way in the cut, and people would bring whole sound systems. You know what I mean? Like do it pretty proper.
Yeah.
And we're raging, and they stop for a second, and a cop comes on the loudspeaker. And he's like, "This is such and such from such and such county, whatever. If anybody's parked on this side, please move because it's impending traffic. But please be safe." Like, they didn't know what the fuck to do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you got a couple thousand kids. Like,
yeah, like
the fuck
they
you gonna
couldn't
do?
shut it down. Like, but yeah, that was way before anything really like got weird. And it's crazy because in that time there was all this propaganda about drugs, and like just recently there's like things on Netflix now busting all that propaganda open, like all about like rave drugs and all that.
Did you ever think weed would be legal?
Honestly, no.
Because like you could catch a felony back in there off the swag.
Dude, when I was alright, so that's another thing why I dropped out of high school, was because I caught a fucking charge off swag. I was in culinary school on this like trade school.
Right.
And I left campus to go blaze with some homies and pick up some fire chronic. These kids were plugged in. Like, weed was different back then. Like, you could find people that had fire that was like untouchable to anything you ever knew. So you would obviously go back all the time. And these kids I knew out of culinary school had that fire. So I was like, all right, we go link up. And I got followed by the fucking security. He was like, "Oh, I watched you guys leave campus, blah, blah, blah." And I took it. I took the case on the chronic and the swag. It's fucked up.
Some bullshit.
Yeah, on some whack shit. I never thought it'd be legal. Because, like, the last time I went into court over weed, the judge was like, "I can't believe you're coming into my courtroom with dreadlocks and a hemp necklace." And it's like,
oh, he let you have it, huh?
Dude, and even at the time, the clerk was like, "Damn, he was really mad at you." And the penalty was $100 fine. It was like,
oh, okay.
What are you going to do? It's decriminalized, like, you jerk.
I thought you were going to jail or something for like 100 days.
He acted like it. And that, like, that's what's fucked up, is some people are never going to let that go. It's crazy.
Do you remember the first time you smoked weed?
Yeah.
Did you get high?
Oh my God, yeah.
Can we hear this?
It was some chronic. I was at the skate park actually, and these kids that I always seen there skating, they were like, "Yo, we're gonna go smoke some weed. You want to come?" I was like, "Fuck it."
Hell
sure.
yeah.
Sure. Like, I never tried that. My homie who had already tried it was like, "Yeah, come with.
Let's go."
Yep. And I got ripped as fuck, dude.
How'd y'all smoke it?
Just out of a joint.
Is that just a joint? Rolled a joint up and smoked it?
It was crazy. It's so weird how far smoking weed has come. Because, like, this was back when people were still making little bongs out of, like, a honey bear.
Okay.
You know those, like,
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like, we made one.
You made like
with a flashlight and a honey
Coke bottle, or
Dude,
all that.
The most ghetto shit, and now you have like rigs, $10,000 pieces, like.
And people are into those pieces, right?
Oh, totally.
We had a cat on here. Fuck, I don't remember his name, but he's like an influencer.
Okay.
With the pieces and all that, and that's how he kind of started. You know what I mean? I'll have to get his name for you.
I mean, yeah, it's crazy how far it's come. Because I was so unhealthy back then.
Right. What about the first time you did a dab?
Oh, man. So it wasn't even really dabs yet.
Was it hot knives?
No, it was... So my first...
The glass knives.
My first introduction to hash oil, I was in New York. I was visiting a homie, and this dude was like, "Yo, I got this hash oil. me and the homies made it. We used butane. It's so strong, like it's so good. And I was like, cool, like, what's up?
Yeah, let me try some.
Let me try some. And he didn't have a way. He wasn't trying to like. So in New York, it's different. The weed scene is way different. People are way stash. So he wasn't trying to really like smoke any of it unless I was trying to buy it.
Right.
And I was like, all right, fuck it. I will buy however much I need to get stoned. And he wasn't having that. So I was like, all right, I'll buy the whole thing. It was like outrageous, like $100 for this gram.
Okay.
Of like oil that was soup.
Right.
You know what I mean? You see dabs today, it's stable. So that oil was obviously still solvent. It was so bad for you, but he takes a tinfoil thing and
like, already smoking crack.
He's like, just hit it over the tinfoil with the toilet paper roll. And that was my first introduction to hash oil. But then the hot knives progressed exponentially past that. You know what I mean? Like, it was crazy.
What do you think of the first time you did that? You smoked that so-called dab?
So that got me higher than I've ever been. And it was fucked up because, like, he roasted the shit out of it to where my mouth completely was resonated.
Uh-huh.
But real dabs, like, my first introduction to that was probably in, like, 2006, I'd say. And these cats, like, had this, like, tie swing. That was, like, the first time I ever took, like, a real dab. Mm-hmm. And they actually coined the terminology. They were like, oh, only a dab will do you. Like, it was, like, brand new. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
Like the beginning of that shit, right?
Yeah, the very beginning. Like, people make memes, like, being all funny, like, oh, I've been dabbing since dabbing was dabbing. But, like,
It's real shit over here.
Been dabbing since.
And what was, like, the quality like at the beginning?
Very poor. Like I said, it was, like, very dark color, almost green, just because the material was so bad. So, like, over time, people have realized that treating the material that you're going to make concentrate from is going to be way better if you treat it good. So now...
What do you mean by treat it good?
So now, for instance, like with rosin, you freeze the material before it's even dry. So you fresh freeze the material and then move on from there. So, like, you can make live resin or live rosin or other forms of concentrate. So back then, when hash oil was first around, a lot of growers had all this trim that they'd been sitting on. Because, like, forever, people didn't even know what to do with their trim.
Right.
And so people were, when they finally figured out how to make concentrate, it was just all old material.
Is that where you get the best concentrate from, is from the trim?
No, it's from the nugs.
The actual nugs, so you're grinding up weed.
You kind of actually don't want to grind it up. So, like, the whole process for rosin, you freeze it right off the plant. So you cut it right off the plant into bags and then put those into the freezer.
And are you talking the buds or just okay?
So you would chop the whole plant down. You would de-leaf it and then chop the buds down. And then freeze that and then make bubble hash, if you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
Or solventless, as people call it nowadays. And then you freeze dry, which is a new technology, the material. And back then, when you were first making hash, you would never do that. You would just let it sit out, and it would just, like, oxidize and not be anywhere near it is now. It's crazy.
Right.
But yeah, with, like, rosin, so basically you freeze dry everything and then squish that with heat and pressure to produce the rosin. So you're basically making, like, a completely smokable, like, outcome or, like, product.
It's basically like all the syrup from it, right? All the resin.
I mean, essentially, it's like the essential oils out of the trichomes, which are where, like, the most THC lies.
Right. One thing I always hear about, or I would always see about people making, shatter or wax or all that stuff, is stuff getting blown the fuck up.
Yeah.
You ever seen that?
I don't want to put homie on blast, but yes, my garage caught on fire one time.
Oh shit.
And homie was like actually yelling, "Soja, Soja," pounding on the wall. I was blowing glass. And I ran out to my garage and it was on fire. We were making BHO. We were making wax.
Uh-huh.
A lot, though. Like, a lot. We were
shitload.
And there's no reason that the fire happened other than it was snowing. And when that happens, the moisture in the air causes everything that you want to be shatter to wax up. So he took a heat gun to it and was, like, making it go back to shatter.
Right.
And it caught on fire. And he got nervous and lifted it up, and it flew everywhere. And there's like master cases of butane around, like
some crazy shit
on fire. And yeah, we put it out. Another reason why I'm.
Were you shitting?
Oh my god! Like I thought I was done. You know what I mean? Like.
Like when you say done, like gone, like
I thought I was gonna blow up.
Or
I thought I was gonna blow up for one, and then I thought I was for sure getting
cops
raided for sure. Oh my god, because it was like we had an exhaust fan going, and so all the like fire obviously went out through the exhaust fan into the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? There was cans of butane. Like, if this is the lid, it was like melted. Like, so it was probably 30 seconds, minute away from blowing up.
Blowing the fuck up.
Like, so I was almost one of those people. And that's crazy because that's after like thousands of pounds processed. You know what I mean?
So it's literally 1 in a million? 1 in 1,000?
To anybody.
Yeah.
And it was happening to a lot of people because everybody wanted to get into it. It was a wild time. It was the Wild West almost. People were like doing it in hotel rooms and shit.
Really?
Yeah.
Damn.
Some guy I read about, because I'm kind of into like what goes on in the whole industry, and one guy I read about in Florida was in a hotel, right? Like 30th floor, blasting some shatter. The butane seeps down to the boiler room in the main level, or like the ground level, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Blew up the whole side of this hotel. Like, it used to be so crazy, people be burning themselves and blowing shit up, like...
You know anyone that's ever got hurt?
No, thankfully.
Yeah, that's crazy. Is the money that good though?
Yeah, especially back then, because like if you had all this trim sitting around, it's like stash like trash to stash, if you will. It was a crazy time. So a lot of these growers were like, "Damn, I have all this stuff that I've just been having sit in my closet. I'll make hash out of it." So he came up large. It was crazy.
Nice. And what kind of made you transcend to the dab from the marijuana?
Probably just efficiency. I feel like for how much I can ingest of THC, which we'll probably have to take a break in a second, I found it way more efficient. I could smoke maybe like less than a gram over, a small sitting or whatever, and it's gonna cost like at the time like $40, $30.
Right.
But I could smoke like maybe a quarter in a sitting with the homies. Like you roll
like nothing. Oh yeah,
you roll up a few blunts and it's gone.
I'm gonna even say not even with the homies, bro. Just solo dolo. Sure. Like what do you think?
You incorporate the homies and then it's gone.
Yeah, this is super gone. What were you thinking you were blowing a day on flour? Easily a quarter, right? Easily, if not more.
If not, well, all right. So I went to Jamaica one time, right? And they have these Rizla king size. And this dude down there, I tried to pass him my joint one time. He was a local. And he said, "No Rasta, smoke." And ever since then, I was like, what? And he explained to me how much you can really intake. He was like, you can breathe and breathe and breathe and like circular breathe cannabis. And so I started getting higher than I've ever been down there. And yeah, I started smoking from like a couple bong loads to joint after joint after joint. Just,
right, just like chain smoking.
Bob Marley almost.
Hey, who in your opinion right now has the best weed in the game? What state?
I would want to say for flower, probably California as far as flower goes with the hype strains.
Mm-hmm.
As far as concentrate goes, though, that's my life, I would say Colorado. I would say we definitely lead by far most states, for sure. We've been like the cutting edge of like how to do things and how to, create. I feel like we definitely have the fire here.
It's funny you say that because the homie Bright said the same thing because he's in the Bay Area.
Okay.
And he's been living out there for a couple months. And he said the exact same thing. He's like, the weed out here is ridiculous. It's better than Colorado. He's like, but the dab game is like, I miss all this concentrate and all that shit from Colorado.
Yeah, so what they're on is like, a lot of people on the West are still on the wax and the shatter and like using solvent to get what they need done. And the reason that is because you have so much. You just have so much material, as you know, with outdoor grows.
Oh, for sure. They got that shit for
crazy.
fucking days.
Yeah, I've trimmed out there. Like, there'll be like 10-pound plants, and then they have the trim of like hundreds of 10-pound plants. So they're like, fuck it, let's just do BHO.
So one thing I heard the trim game in Cali is ridiculous. Like, you can really make some crazy money, and it's like not like it never ends.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you have a fucking 10-pound... Go ahead.
I've been out there they used to call it a trimmer grant. And you could like find jobs just randomly, but I actually had a homie that plugged me in.
Right.
So we went out to Cali and got the Colorado rate per pound to trim, and you can crush it. Like, we met some people that were staying with us that
what is that real quick? Can you explain what you were just saying, the Colorado rate per trim?
Oh, all right. So most people out there, they get paid hourly.
Right.
Unless you like know people. Out here, if you know people that are like in it and have been growing for a while, they're going to pay you per pound. So it's way better than hourly. Like,
right.
Way better. Because if you're a good trimmer, you can make your whole summer's worth in like a few days. You know what I mean? So like, the going rate at the time was like $200 a pound.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And it would be just dry material. So you can just sit there and just rage for 8 hours. And I topped out at my best trim rate is £1.75 in an 8-hour shift. So that's pretty decent. You can make like 200 plus,
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty good. So if you stay there for like a few weeks, we met this lady who was in from Holland, I think. That was crushing it. She would just sit there and trim literally like all day, all night, not take cigarette breaks, not eat with anybody. Like, she was in it. And supposedly that's what she did. She would travel around, go to garden and be like, hey, I'm here to trim.
Knock it out. Make some good ass money, huh?
Yeah. Because I mean, if you go from spot to spot, which they all need help.
Right. I hear like, yeah, it's out there like there's like a nonstop.
Yeah, they're doing it so big that humans cannot easily do all that work.
And that's what's crazy is that's the difference. Like, I always compare Denver to LA. Like, we're like LA, but we're 10 years behind on everything. Yeah. So like you said, like if we're doing it big here, like on the weed, like they're doing it. Huge. And then it doesn't snow out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah, they have a full season. And you can totally tap into that by using that opportunity, and they do. I mean, you can even see it. Like, people will go out there and just cash in and then sell the property on Zillow. And you'll see like their 100-pound smart pots left behind in the Zillow photos. It's like, it's crazy. Wild West.
So you got like pretty much connections all over the United States with the cannabis, huh?
Kind of. It definitely allows you to like meet people and like hang out with people that you normally wouldn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, it's pretty cool that way.
Where do you like? What's the difference between how weed and cannabis is right now to compare to when it first started? Like, as far as being the medical, do you think it was? I think it was better back then at the very beginning.
Yeah, definitely. So I actually got my start in that scene, serving a homie that owned a dispensary.
Were you one of those cats with a backpack with probably like 20 pounds of good ass weed, just going dispensary to dispensary? Okay.
And edibles. And I also, honestly, before then, you would just find people that were like moving really good weed, or you would go up to like Red Rocks and there'd be a concert going on and all the out of town people would have fire. So I would just like go up to Upper South and know that like people would, for like such and such band would have that fire. And before medical, I would say for sure it was way better, because once it started going legal, everybody that didn't really like know about this culture tapped in.
Oh yeah.
You know? People that don't really even get stoned, well, especially now, but in the beginning it was really odd when people don't get stoned and like run a business in cannabis. So it made it hard for everybody. Like everybody, including my friend, he had a dispensary and was allowing me to sell my product. And yeah, like all the licensing that Colorado started in the beginning with made it way too hard for people.
For the medical, it was crazy. When the medical was going on, they made it hard as fuck. And then when it became recreational, it was kind of easier almost.
Way easier. So like they didn't know. Well, you got to hand it to Colorado for doing the best they could with what they had, because it was all brand new.
Right.
You know what I mean?
We're definitely innovators to all this shit.
So like there used to be people on the board of the MED that made decisions. Like some of the first dab heads are the people that decided you can't make concentrate at your house, or you can't have such and such amount of plants at your house, or whatever. It was all so brand new that like people like you or me were deciding the rules.
Right.
And it's never really been checked. Like, why can't I make concentrate at my house? You know what I mean? This day and age, if I'm safe with it and whatever, like. So yeah, it changed a lot. Like, definitely people became like way more wanting to use the plant for wealth rather than healing.
Right.
You know, like I've always wanted to just get people stoned, which in turn is a medication.
Right.
You know? Like growing flower definitely can offer healing to certain people. Like think about the people that wait, you know, a whole 8-hour day shift and then get off and smoke a bowl. You know what I mean? And that bowl is your flower. Like that's like some healing. You know, and that you can't really just do in the medical anymore. You can't just be like, hey, I grow this tree and I want to offer it to the people. So yeah, it's changed a lot.
How'd you get into the edibles?
So honestly, like I hung out with these kids at Red Rocks one time and I saw them crushing it in the edible hustle.
Okay.
And they had me help them one time. And I was just up there selling hat pins and some of my glass and a few like trinket type things.
Do you go up there on the regular to sling stuff?
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
No. They got cameras that follow you. Very, very closely like Walmart.
Okay.
But it used to be just
free for all.
Especially when like the dead would come through.
Oh shit, bro. Like I said, I've been to a couple dead concerts and that shit was some crazy ass shit. Yeah. And that was the best drugs I'd have ever got. You know what I mean? You know?
Right. Yep. So yeah, just mainly I would be up at Red Rocks and I saw this dude over and over again, because you kind of see the same people. You know what I mean? You're always up there, and yeah, he was crushing it, and he asked me to help him one time when Fish came into town. And I had made edibles before. Like I had my own granola company and I had my own like cookies and stuff like that, simple stuff.
Right.
But he was making like hard candies and I think it was like jerky or something, like, you know, off the wall. And I was like, damn, I just helped this dude make like a couple bands over the weekend. Like, what's up with this whole thing?
Right.
And started.
Did he
really,
break you off?
Yeah, I was like working for him.
Okay.
You know, so yeah.
He hooked you up.
Yeah. And since it was held lucrative to him, he definitely was generous. It was tight. So yeah, I realized there was like this whole thing aside from just the homies. So like I had friends that would eat cookies and, you know, stuff like that. Like, yo, let me get stoned, like make me a batch of brownies or whatever. But then I started seeing like you can definitely get people stoned on like a way broader scale.
Right.
You
like
know?
some people like don't like to smoke.
Yeah. Especially at concerts.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And especially at the time, it was so illegal, and like being out in the open about smoking, even sometimes now still in places.
I don't know, bro. Back in the day, we smoked everywhere. Like we didn't give a fuck. Like
so did I, but some people get so paranoid.
Yeah.
You know, they'd rather eat a candy than instead of you smoking.
Right. So, not even that let you know that they are high. Right. It's undercover shit.
Right.
All right. Well, see, you had a story too that you wanted to tell, right?
Of what?
About Agent.
Oh yeah. So,
about being that we're talking about the whole, medical, marijuana.
Yeah, for sure. So, I actually knew him a little bit through painting,
mm-hmm.
and subsequently helped him with cannabis. It was crazy. So, yeah.
Take us through it.
Another long story.
Take us through it, and then we're going to take a break after that.
So, one time I was painting with Cohen, and this dude walked up on us, and it was Agent. At the time, he wrote Ints, and I met that dude way back then. And
back in the day.
He used to actually come, rest in peace, and that's where this is going, honestly. He used to hang out at this grilled cheese spot, and like I started knowing him as a person and things like that. A lot of writers came through there. Like, it was actually a trip. It was kind of surreal. But anyway, so knew him then, and then kind of just like went our own separate ways. I was doing my own thing. He was in a crew that I had some problems with at the time. And so I didn't really like talk to him anymore.
Right, you just kind of met him.
Right. So my homie, subsequently, my big homie, who's like an influence in like knowledge, things like that, Clue, was really tight with them. And it was through many things aside from that grilled cheese spot at the time. It's no longer a place anymore. It was Ched's. I don't know if you ever ate there. Fucking fire. It was.
I remember.
They had a thing going, man. Like, it was a grilled cheese spot that everybody hung out at.
Okay. I've heard about it.
Yeah, it was chill. So, big homie was the manager there, and he hit me up and he was like, yo, I have a friend that's ill right now. He didn't really say what was going on. He didn't really say who it was. He just said he needed help, and he knew that I had been helping people currently with cannabis oil with helping their cancers. So apparently that's why he hit me up. So he's like, yo, I need you to go talk to this dude and see what's up with him. Like, he has tumors. And that's all he really told me. So I pulled up to this guy's house, and I didn't know who it was going to be. He just said it was a friend that needed help.
Right.
Agent answers the door. And at the time, like I said, he was in a crew that I was unfavorable with.
Right.
So I thought I was about to get punked.
You thought some shit was going to go down.
I thought, for whatever reason, even though, like, me and the big homie are, like, absolutely unbreakably tight, you never know this day and age. Like, you know what I mean? I just thought, like, it was weird. Of all people, that dude answers the door, and he's like, yo, I need to talk to you, man. Like, not on some graffiti shit. Like, you want to come in for a second? And he opened up to me. He was like, dude, I have tumors in my head, and Clue told me that you might be able to help me with, at least easing the pain, or maybe, fucking up this cancer.
Right.
And I was like...
And what did you do?
I was like, let's do it. I was like, I think I have the way, because, as I said, currently I was helping this woman with stage 4 breast cancer with an oil, and her cancer was going into remission.
Right. And how did you kind of come up with this oil? Was it some shit you've been concocting for a while, or?
No, not me personally. So there's a dude, Rick Simpson, who makes it's like a full spectrum oil.
Okay.
And basically what that is, he takes a whole plant and cooks it down in Everclear or a solvent. And it makes basically hash oil from back in the day. Mm-hmm. And you eat that. And you're supposed to eat that at 1,000 milligrams.
That's a fucking lot.
That's a lot. Like 1,000 milligrams a day over the course of 180 days, and it'll kick cancer's ass. Like, you'll be in remission, you'll be good. So knowing that knowledge, I came up with something that was a lot more pure. Because shatter at the time tests at 70-80% THC, and then CBD is available in 99% isolate. So I decided to mix the two and offer it to this woman, and it was working. So I took that knowledge and I offered it to Agent. I was like, look, if you eat this much, you're going to be at least out of the pain that you're in, or we can maybe start fucking this cancer up in your head. Like, let's make these tumors go away.
Right.
You know? And he was open to it because at the time, what else are you going to do?
Yeah, you don't really have much of a choice.
He was being offered radiation and things like that, and he wasn't for it. You know what I mean? So I was like, all right, I'm going to give you this, and gave him a regimen. Like, you can't just start, like, 1,000 milligrams, jump right in.
Right.
You got to kind of ramp up. And, I mean, he's kind of like, he drinks and did drugs and stuff, but, I mean, he doesn't eat edibles by the 1,000 milligrams. Nobody does.
Right.
I don't either. You
That's
know
a
what
lot,
I mean?
bro.
Dude, it's a lot. But it started working. He was maybe like 60 days in, and he hit me up and was like, my doctor said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because your tumors are actually not growing anymore. Some of them are getting a little smaller. And I honestly teared up. I was like, damn, like this is working. Like,
right.
Let's keep to it. So gave him a bunch more, and that supply ran out. And yeah, like, it was all through donation, like, just because I have concentrate all the time at my fingertips. So helping that woman and Agent was actually just like, I feel like I was just like a vessel of cannabinoids to help them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it was crazy because after that supply had run out, and I was kind of like in the middle of making more, or something was going on to where, like, he had ran out, and he was like, yo, let me get some more of that oil. And I explained to him, like, I had been donating it to him, and, like, what sucks is, like, people and money are, like, so indifferent. And he kind of got weird, like, knowing how much I had just donated to him.
Right, because that shit wasn't cheap, right?
No. And I didn't care, though, because, like I said, I had a bunch. So I was like,
yeah, it was just reserved.
Like, I feel like cannabis is healing. Before knowing any of this, I've always thought that by Rasta, that it is healing. And it's going to bring people together in ways that, like I said, like, the weirdest people you ever met are going to come together and smoke a blunt. You know? Like, so, yeah, basically, he felt really indifferent about me donating so much. I was like maybe 100 days in, which is a couple grand already, you know. And he was like, well, I don't really have the pocket to pay for any of this. Like, can I give you something in trade? And I was like, yeah, like, you know, that goes back to the beginning of all things. Like, yeah, let's trade some shit. And it ended up being like an HO scale train, which I have in my collection. That
there probably ain't too many of those motherfuckers around, huh?
So there's like one, honestly.
One.
And I'm really probably not supposed to speak on it, but rest in peace, Mike.
R.I.P.
I wasn't really supposed to have this, but it was because of our interaction that he was down to do that train for me. And I guess a lot of people had asked him to do HO scale trains in the past, and he wasn't really for it, but like, he crushed it for me. He taped off all the numbers, did it with a brush, like the whole nine.
You got a jam.
Yeah, that I'll forever be humbled by. There might be another train out there that Gates may or may not have, because I gave him two. After the first one, I was like, let me get another one of these. Like, he fucking murdered this. Like, I gave him an auto rack because that's where I first met him. There used to be this auto rack place that everybody was painting. Everybody. He drove up from Colorado Springs that night we met him. All the way up just because it was auto racks in Denver. Like, oh my God. King was actually out here one time and painted these auto racks. It was a big deal. So I gave him an auto rack, and I was like, paint this shit, and he passed. And I don't know if it's out there anymore, or if it ever got painted. Well, I actually know it got painted because I asked him for it, and he was like, yeah, I still got it. But I never got it. So.
R.I.P., man.
Yeah, rest in peace, Mike.
Well, shoot, we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about all kinds of graffiti, all kinds of trains, freights, you name it.
Yeah, that's what's up.
Be right back. And we're back. It's your boy, JoeThunder, back once again. You know what I'm saying? Got to take that chronic break. That bathroom break, that munchies break.
Dabs.
Yeah, dab break, you know what I'm saying? We ain't talking about the dance, you know what I'm saying? But we back. What's up, man? How you doing? You feeling better? You rejuvenated?
Yep.
Hell yeah. Me too. Smoked about a blunt.
Eat a little fungus.
A little something, you know what I mean? Up. Doing good, you know what I'm saying? But we about to talk about graffiti now, man. So you've been painting a fucking gang of freights for a long ass time. How many you think you got, bro?
So a lot of people really probably don't chase numbers like I do, but I stay pretty on top of it. I'm over 600 easily.
Damn.
And that's like full color pieces, not just tagging them, not just catching hollows or fill-ins, like burners, if you will.
Burners.
A lot of people don't see my stuff as burners, but whatever. I paint.
Fuck them. You know what I'm saying? Hey, yep. You got 600 up, right?
Right.
What's kind of like your favorite, train to hit?
Right now, because I've never really had the opportunity to paint them very often, cryos for sure.
Right.
They've been coming through the state for the last couple years now, solid, which they never really have, which is wild. Like, there was a change or a shift in shipping of wine and beer, and now these flat panel trains are coming through more than ever.
And that's what's in them, or what?
Yeah.
Wine and liquor?
Yeah. Not liquor, just wine and beer.
Okay.
Mostly wine.
Do you ever find wine?
Yeah.
While painting?
Yeah.
All the time? Do you get drunk?
No. I don't really drink that much, honestly. But I do find them. Like, I feel like it's probably just like...
Setup?
No. Yeah, take these bottles. No, I feel like the forklift driver is probably just like sloppy, and they fall, and you'll find like pretty nice bottles of wine broken on the ground, which you can definitely put two and two together.
What's going on? How long you been painting, man?
16 years.
16.
Probably pretty tough. Well, 17.
Right.
Yeah.
And was Soja always the first name?
No. For a minute, I wrote something funny. I was writing 2 cans.
2 cans, like 2 chains, but 2 cans.
Yeah, but that lasted for only a little while.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So, what was I gonna say? What are kind of some of the rules when painting trains?
So everything that a graffiti writer is going to tell you about that is probably not on point.
Right.
To be honest. You're in a situation where you're painting on things that are basically like a USPS box.
Some government shit.
Needing to go somewhere. So it's like the rules that I could tell you aren't even going to pertain to what these workers need us to not be doing to their boxcars. You know what I mean? Me personally, I know enough to not go over the numbers. I bring tape and magnets to be very thorough, to not go over any reporting marks, obviously, and ways that they do ship these boxcars. But yeah, you just gotta be aware of what they actually are, which is a moving freight object.
That shit could really hurt you.
Right. It's crazy. I've actually almost died one time in a yard.
You want to talk about that, or?
Sure. I was catching tags with my friend Effet, and there's this thing that happens in train yards that I wasn't really familiar with at the time, where when they're working a line they will bump a boxcar or a hopper and just let it ghost into the yard without anything attached. So at the time, they had ghosted a line of maybe like 6 boxcars, and they crashed into us without any sound. Just bam.
You didn't hear him coming at all, right?
No, not at all. And it hit so hard that it crashed into me from the boxcar hitting him, and we both fell over almost under the train.
Golly.
Probably the scariest moment for sure. Like,
how long did it take you to finish your piece after that?
Oh, I didn't. We left.
You just left, said fuck it.
Yeah.
Man, yeah, that's close calls, man. Like you said, you can't really be fucking playing around with those.
When they do that, they just let it go down a hill, basically. So whatever momentum that train has
it's gonna hit hard. Yeah. And like you said, that's a lot of weight behind that motherfucker. You can get crushed in a second.
Even when they're empty, they're so heavy.
Dang, that's crazy. What's another one? Never paint in the main yard?
Yeah, definitely.
Why don't you paint? I've always wondered, why don't you paint in the main yard? Is it just too hot? Too many workers or what?
So out of direct experience, there are certain yards that they patrol with ATV out here. And it's not common like every night, but that's one thing in the main yards. And I think that's just for safety of people riding on the trains.
Right, like hobos and shit.
Yeah, not writing on them.
Right.
But that's a big reason. And then they have so many shift changes in these main yards that there's constant
movement, constant people.
And basically the authoritative figures, as you would call them, bulls, which is like the rail authority has their own group of security.
Yeah, I was going to tell you, explain that real quick, because like you said, you can't get arrested by the regular police. You got to get arrested by the bulls, right?
So yeah, they have their own authoritative group of people that regulate what happens in their train yards. So if you're trespassing, you're not just trespassing in the county that you're in. You're trespassing whatever rules the train company
govern
has.
That, yeah.
So it's like if they're on some federal shit, you're going to be facing some pretty deep charges. So you definitely have to be careful in the like more high trafficked areas.
So that makes sense. So that's why you want to kind of stay out there, because it's probably like federal in the main yard, where if you find a little cut, it's probably just going to be some business.
Essentially. So there are places that receive and ship goods from, and those are going to be basically the ones that you would assume and hope are going to hold less of an anger towards it, as far as like having it be patrolled, or if they were to catch you there, they're not going to throw the book at you the same as if you got caught in, say, a main yard.
Yeah, they're not going to trip on you.
Yeah.
Shit, well, I know in Cali, man, being that there's so much jacking going on, they've gone to the drones.
Right.
Well, you
Supposedly that's happening out here with back to those cryos. Like, people are getting very excited about these new trains coming through, and supposedly there's been drones seen. And I think it would be for other reasons, but supposedly that's happening.
Oh, man, watch out, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for real.
So, I know you touched on it a little bit earlier, but what kind of got you into the trains or the freights?
Mainly just seeing people that weren't alive anymore that were up on these freights and being like, okay.
Like, who would you see?
Riot was one of them for sure. Over and over again on these like coal cars, and yeah, mainly just coal cars. I would see the dude's name that had been passed away for probably like 6 years prior to when I started really getting into it. So it was like, all right, this is kind of cool. Like, I might be able to have some sort of longevity outside of my life. If I continue to paint them throughout my life, they might outlast me. So I was like, this might be something that I could spend some time doing, and it might be worth it.
You remember the first time hitting a train?
I've caught tags on them before I really like painted a piece on one.
When's the first time you painted a piece?
It was probably like a year or two into it. I was dating this girl that was like up north in college, and I always saw these freights as I was driving by to go chill with her and smoke weed. And yeah, basically kept seeing a lot of the same names, and my bad.
No, you're good. Cottonmouth killer.
Yep. But yeah, I kept seeing the same like names over and over again, and then went and tried it, and it was pitch black in the middle of this cornfield. Had no idea what I was doing. It was like the middle of winter, and decided to like really try and paint some letters.
Okay.
Like,
did you go by yourself?
Yeah. Without any real influence. Like, that's what's been different with me about graffiti is like, I don't really have like a big influence on like style or letters or like how to do it. I just like went and did it because I was like, this is fun. You know what I mean?
Right. So I was gonna ask you, did you get pussy before or did you get pussy afterwards? Or did you get pussy then come home and then
it was before, and then I'd go paint. You already know.
Those college girls, you know what I'm saying?
Yep. And yeah, it was her freshman year, so she was like pretty wild and down to party, and yeah, I'd bring fire trees up there, get stoned, and go paint after.
Right, and you said this was Greeley, right? You were up at UNC or what?
Yeah. Which is crazy because that place is so foul of a town.
It smells as soon as you get there, bro.
It sucks.
How's it painting there, though? Is it pretty chill, or?
They used to have a pretty like frequent yard. It's died down a lot now.
Now it looks like it's all kind of moved in town, like you said, right? It's kind of switched it up. You don't have to really, go out unless you're dedicated.
Yeah, this day and age, you really don't have to travel as far.
Unless, like you said, you're like you or you're the homie BGN, you know what I mean? Y'all go looking for that shit regardless because y'all done hit everything in town.
Well, what you can do is you can follow on maps and find where the layups are and then go check them, you know what I mean? And speaking of BGN, like he already was on that long before I met him.
Right.
So I was like, you know about this? You know how to follow maps? Like, oh, okay.
Yeah, they put me on a little game with that. Like you could just follow because it's always updated, right?
Yeah. And it's crazy, like almost like pretty on point with Google Maps. Like you can tell, like obviously not if there's like layups there, but you can see if there was once for a lot of occasions. So it's like you can go check, be like, all right, these are here. Let's go see if they're there tonight.
Right, and see if it lines up, coordinates.
Right.
And like you said, another thing that you guys got back in the day, or kind of, I don't know, maybe still to this day, is tracking trains, right?
So that's been something that I've been like a nerd about.
Right.
Which is like a lot of people are in agreement and disagreement of if it's even useful to
goes
like
both ways
to your average. But there is a train tracking phone number that is for workers, obviously, that I sort of found out about and have related actually to a few writers about it. Like, oh, you know about this? Yeah, you know about this?
You ever hear about this?
Because the thing is, you can't just like punch in the number. You can talk it, but everybody's scared about doing that because it's like potentially monitored, right?
Right.
So the way you have to punch it in is like not linear. So everybody's like fucked up by it, so they don't fuck with it. And the people that know about it, they're like, why would you use that? Well, on some nerd shit, you can definitely track where your train is after you got it, and then if it's heading out into the next spot, which you know where it is subsequently, you can go out and get a flick of it, which for me, taking dabs, chilling, growing trees.
No.
I don't want to wait around all week
No.
trying to get things done to see my train or hope that somebody gets a flick of it. So I just use that as a personal way to like see where everything's at. It's also cool because you can see where your train is gone. You can be like, where have I been in this universe or in this nation? You know what I mean? They go from Mexico all the way to Canada. So you can find out like where they are at the current moment if you wanted
right.
to.
And nowadays it's a lot easier with the gram and all that. You got people benching that shit. Back in the days, it was all about Polaroids or pictures that people actually benched, right?
Right. So getting fame through painting trains was a lot harder than it is now, for sure.
Right.
Because you actually had to either have somebody that was like excited about trains taking pictures, and then your graffiti would be on them, or they were somebody that was out taking pictures. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like now where you can just post your own stuff and then get notoriety.
Right. You ever into benching or anything like that?
Yeah, I used to spend a lot of time. Not so much anymore because I'm like way more wrapped up in things, but when I was growing as like more of a full-time thing, I was definitely just spending every hour in the train yard. Seeing what was coming in, seeing what was leaving, seeing what I could paint, getting pictures of what I painted. Definitely got a lot of cool pictures of who's up at the time.
Right.
You can definitely see like who your peers are, how much work they're putting in. You know what I mean? It's pretty cool.
Right. And you've always kind of like stuck to like the train scene, huh?
Yeah.
For the most part, kind of low key.
Yeah. Just because after I had gotten in trouble, it's like, what am I doing? You know what I mean?
Right.
As it's probably set into any graffiti writer's mind, like, you're sitting there like, what am I doing? And so I started painting freights and realizing how cush it was. And it's just like, you know what I mean?
Right. Do you have any funny or kind of, you told me a funny train story earlier.
What's that?
About Dulce.
Oh, so I had just met Dulce maybe like...
Shout out. She's the homie.
Yeah.
She's going to be on the podcast soon. I
She's
talked to her today.
I smoke her down all the time. She's been a friend for a minute. And, let's see, when was that? I was dropping off Flex at Koza's house. And she was there, and I was about to go paint a freight. And I was like, you want to go?
Uh-huh.
She's like, yeah, let's go. Roll over to this place. It's like kind of deep in the mountains a little bit. It's west. I'm not going to say.
Right.
And we're going through these bushes, and we see a deer, and we hold up for a second because I was like, you know, there's a deer. And she goes, Soja, are deer nice? And I was like, yeah, what are you talking about? She goes, do they bite or anything? And I was like,
oh, so they can.
No. Like, they're chill. What do you mean? And she's like, I've never really interacted with one. I was like, you're good. You're good.
She ain't ever been seen the wildlife like that while painting, huh?
She's definitely from, you know, the concrete jungle, and I'm out here in the mountains like, she's fucking our friend.
Right, that's funny. Shout out to the homie, though.
Yeah, shout out Dulce. Real one since day one.
What about any kind of crazy stuff in the train, late night, you know what I mean? Shit's fucking...
Yo, so a few times I've had some crazy shit happen. Like, one time I was up north, and these tweakers came into the yard and started just, like, sawing away with a power cutter, like, something. Loud as fuck. Blowing the spot, like...
Hacking some shit the fuck up, huh?
They rolled in, turned off their headlights, knew exactly what they were doing, and then just, like, got to it.
Got to work.
And I was like, all right, if this is happening now and nobody cares about them, obviously, you know, and that was it. I was like, nobody cares about this. Like, nobody's looking in a train yard where it's like, there's probably somebody doing something. It's
right.
Like, you can get so much done in a train yard, it's crazy.
You ever been scared or seen any ghosts?
Not on some ghost shit, but I've heard some really fucking weird noises. You know what I mean? And you're like in an area of huge steel objects. So you're like, was that creaking, or is somebody like in the boxcar? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Some Freddy Krueger scraping shit.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, honestly, not even to be like on some tough guy. When I walk past an open boxcar, I'm nervous. I'm not even gonna front. It's like, who the fuck or what the fuck is waiting in there on like some horror movie shit? You know what I mean? Like,
right. You ever got freaked out by any shadows or anything like that? See anything moving? I've seen some shit like some eyes, like, oh shit, like.
Nah, nothing like that.
Get the fuck
I have
out
had like some people very upset seeing us in a train yard though, for sure.
Like who?
And
like homeless people or?
That. All right. So one time there's like a metal recycling yard in the city, And one time this dude was throwing out all of this metal, right? And we're painting it, and all of a sudden this metal starts flying the fuck out of the train car.
Right.
And I'm like, what the fuck? And he looks over and sees us, and he's like, get the fuck out of here. And we're like, what the fuck? Like, you're stealing metal from an already recycled place. Like, fuck you. Like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's weird what you run into. Because it's not your normal, like, oh, I'm in the city painting a wall. It's like you run into, like, some of the weirdest, like, grimiest shit you've ever thought of.
Oh, I bet.
In a train yard, you know?
For sure, for sure. Hey, what we were talking about earlier, what are some of the train yards that you've painted that you like, that are not, you know, outside of Colorado?
So I haven't traveled too far and done too much work yet, but I definitely enjoyed my time in Missouri. There's definitely a lot more train movement there.
It is a big ass train yard.
And just a city of transit. You know what I mean? So they have a lot of things going through that is a lot more than here as far as
it's a main hub, like, yeah, it's going, like, that's the middle of the map pretty much, right?
Right.
Everything's finding its way in and out of that spot. You can take that off if you want. We're good with that shit, you know what I'm saying?
Cool.
Yeah. Trying to, you know what I mean? We got cotton mouth. That's what's going on. We high as
like
a motherfucker. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely feeling them things.
Yeah, for sure. Where were we at? Oh, you said, so you haven't traveled much or what?
Not as far as painting, no. I have traveled, like, as far as life, but not painting freights.
Where's some places you think you might want to go?
So following the maps, there's definitely, like, some hot areas that I want to paint in. Out east, and I'm not really gonna say where because it might give up some things.
Right, my bad. What
east,
cities?
There's
Yeah,
some stuff, and in the Midwest, there's definitely like some gems, and then down in Florida, obviously, like the Tropicanas would be like a bucket list thing.
Oh, for sure.
Which is like a rare thing that most people don't even care about anymore this day and age, but.
Are there still reefers? Like I have a DVD like called Reefer Madness, and not the weed one, but the trains.
So, yeah. So
those things still rolling.
Yeah. What's crazy about Colorado is we never really got reefers often,
right?
Because we don't have much
produce, right?
It's produce and meat transit. So for whatever reason, most of the meat transit that happens here is through semis and stuff like that.
Right.
So we don't really see reefers often, but there is a place that they come. And
have you ever caught one?
Yeah.
More than one?
That dude BGN caught one a few months ago that was like negative 26 degrees temperature inside of the boxcar. Yeah. So like they're still happening and they're still rolling around active.
Who's seen that shit?
What do you mean?
Like who spotted and who hit who up? Or did y'all just go to the yard and that motherfucker was there?
So we caught wind that it might have been there, and we drove up there multiple times chasing this idea.
Was it far?
Yeah, it's like a 3-hour drive.
Oh, from here?
Yeah.
Shut the front door. Shut the fuck up.
So people don't want to do it.
Right.
Actually, it's like 2.5 hours from.
Well, still.
Yeah.
So you're saying multiple times you and Biggin fucking drove to this place thinking it was there and it was not there.
Yeah. And we drive up there one time and there it was, which is an Armin, which is like a reefer, which is like probably only the third time I'd ever seen one in Colorado. You know, so I was bugging. I actually shook that dude's shoulder like, oh my God,
right.
Fucking reefer. But yeah, I mean, there's been other ones that have rolled through the city yards, the main yards, like the BNSF ones. I painted one of those, but never an Armin flat. Like that's like a brand new thing in Colorado for sure.
So let me ask you this: like you said, we really don't paint the main yards, but if that ideal train is in the main yard, are you gonna take a fucking chance?
For the biscuit?
Exactly.
No. So through etiquette of trains, you don't want to do that because future opportunity. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Lately, though, we have been overstepping comfort levels
a little bit
to get the certain ones. You know what I mean? But it's been working out. It's interesting because, like I said, there used to not be like a huge movement of freights in Colorado the way that there is now.
Right. And what were you talking about? The reason to that was because of the rule? What were you talking about?
So right now there is a lot of new boxcars and a lot of new, pretty much a lot of every type of car on the freights except for like new coal cars being made, because there's a Rule 80, which is basically, it states if a car on the rails is older than 40 years,
Mm-hmm.
it has to be scrapped, essentially. And if the maintenance has been kept past that 40-year limit to 50 years, there's exceptions. But so right now, like a lot of the trains that are nostalgic from like the 76 era and later are getting scrapped. So
They're on their way out.
Yeah, if you really want to stay on top of it, you have to keep painting. Because honestly, like out of the 600 plus I mentioned, I would assume probably like at least 100 or so have been scrapped for sure.
Okay.
Just because they're old.
Just, yeah, everything, has its time.
Yeah.
You ever do any whole cars?
Yeah.
What's that like, bro?
Efficient. And it's a lot of fun, honestly. I've done 16 of them personally, and one crew roller when I was in a crew. But I say efficient because you can cover a lot of space in the time that people can get the same amount of work done on a panel. And for instance, I was with a homie, I'm not going to say because it'll kind of like clown a little bit, but we were under this bridge and this line rolled in that normally doesn't roll through, and I was ready to do a roller and all he had was cans, and in the time he did his can fill, I did a whole train. So
For real, like that?
yeah, I mean, if you've ever rolled a wall, like, you know that you can really get into that, some elbow grease and cover the space.
No, for sure, for sure. Is that like one of your favorites? Or do you got to be in the mood?
I used to be all about it, honestly, because I used to let ego drive my graffiti, which is silly, because it shouldn't be that way. So I stopped doing them as much. But I used to just have this like feeling that I had to prove something to everybody. So I would roll trains, and just a lot of them. And for self-interest, because it's pretty cool to see your name rolling, honestly.
Fuck yeah, on a big ass whole, on a whole.
And it's been lucrative. Like, I get people that have benched me in like the most pristine settings. You know what I mean? It's like,
Give me an example.
there's a train crossing this bridge over another bridge, so it's like over
Double bridge.
like 2 train trellises.
Yeah.
And then there's like a river in the foreground that this dude, I don't even know who he was, but he benched me as it's like crossing
That's dope.
the bridge. I have it on my page, but yeah.
Is that one like your favorite like pictures that anyone's ever benched from you? Or?
Yeah, I actually said that that's like the epitome of why people do what I do. You know what I mean? Because like, you never know who's going to see that message in the bottle or who's going to ever see you after you paint, because they go literally everywhere. So it's like, you never know who's going to even have their camera.
Exactly.
So it's pretty cool.
What do the people like around you, like parents and brothers and all that, think about like your graffiti?
I don't think they really know. Like I said, my brother's in the Air Force. If I told him, he'd probably see it as a liability.
So he doesn't know then?
No.
Your parents don't know? Kinda?
Yeah, they know a little bit, but not how thorough I am about it, and not at my age that I'm still like painting at almost 100 trains a year.
That's a fucking lot.
It takes time out of your regular scheduled program.
That's a good way to put it, brother. How do you get your paint?
Just through my hustle.
Just.
Yeah, like, I've never been one to, like, be about stealing just because of, like, my values as, like, what I believe in. But thankfully, I have, like, hustles that are able to provide.
Nah,
and,
I
like,
totally get it.
Growing trees can be one of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Is it harder to get paint nowadays? What do you think of these high prices on paint?
It's fucked up. It's gouging for sure. I've actually switched to Montana. Shout out Left Side Gallery,
Right.
For having supply. But yeah,
what were you using before? That was
Painter's Touch for years and years, and I swear by that. And then BGN was like, "Yo, start using this. It's better in the winter. This, that, the other." And we actually have a bet that I told him. I was like, because I painted a train where he had Montana and I had Painter's Touch. And I swear the Painter's Touch is going to outlast that shit. But lately, because prices are so high, I'd rather support local. You know what I mean? I'd rather, like, prices of Painter's Touch is like $6.59 a can or some shit.
They were saying the other day $7 for Rusto.
Yeah, it's fucked up.
Home Depot, you got the designer's cheaper.
Yeah, so like, why wouldn't you? But we'll see. Because honestly, like, I used to buy Montana in the beginning when I first really didn't know, and I had a lot of trains fade really fast. So we'll see. Marketing, we'll see. Test of time.
We shall.
Companies, Montana.
Hey, did you have any kind of cats that you looked up to and that kind of did trains? You know what I mean? When you were kind of doing your thing or kind of first getting into it, besides, you know, the people you were seeing on the way to Greeley?
Yeah, like, so it's actually still over there. There's a caboose that Jabber painted right off of the highway.
Right.
Off of, like, I-70, actually. And seeing that, I was like, damn, this is really dope. And then I would see that name all over, like that ninja face, you know what I mean?
Yeah, did you ever have a rooftop over there? It wasn't quite like a rooftop, but it was like, I don't even know how to explain it. I guess it was kind of like a rooftop, but it was like white. Probably like a couple blocks down from there. It was like, I don't even know what kind of company it is. I don't know. That kind of comes to my mind. That was back in the day, bro.
Not off the top of my head. I'm not sure. I'm pretty stoned right now, though.
No, I hear that. Shit, me too. I can get it, man. What kind of advice you got for the new cats coming into the game, man? What do they need to do?
Just be yourself. I mean, honestly, don't give in to what the standard of graffiti is or should be.
Yeah, it's always stretchable. You always stretch. You always flip it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, painting a surface is already, like, a fucked up thing if you think about it. So, who cares about what you do or how you do it? You know, like, that would be my first sound piece of advice to the youth. Because I was taught that it was, like, what everybody thinks matters. And really, like, your peers don't matter. Your own feeling about it matters, you know? So.
One thing that comes along with fucking graffiti is beef.
Yeah.
And you've had beef with quite a few people, right?
Here and there. Yeah, unfortunately. Because I try and keep it on, like, some very peaceful energy because I'm a Rasta and things like that. But there is a duality of Rasta where you're a lamb and you're a lion. You know what I mean? And, like, sometimes people walk all over you and you have to be that lion and stand up. And that's all it's really been.
Is there, like, a lot of beef in the train scene?
Not really much that people act on unless it, like, boils over to that. You know what I mean? And, like, sometimes, as what I've been involved in has boiled over to the trains and probably will stay on the trains for a long time.
Not ending anytime soon?
I would like for it to be honest, like, as a person, as, like, a soul being. You know what I mean? But because there's been so much, like, wrongful things done on the other end, it probably won't ever be let go of. like yards have been like blown, and like workers have noticed like the yard being blown on purpose, and like, certain trains never came back to that layup still to this day. Like that's a big part of why I like hold on to things.
And what do you mean by that? I'm a little confused. Like,
so like there used to be cryos that came through the state, like before current.
Right.
There's a lot of them. So like catching them was a fucking needle in a haystack. You were very fortunate in Colorado to catch a cryo. And the only reason that they were coming here was because they were getting repaired. And at a repair spot, you're definitely not supposed to let it be known that you're painting there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they're hands-on the train. They're probably doing wheel work or welds or whatever. So if you're obvious about that shit, you're blowing the yard for sure. And that's what had happened. Like, beef spilled over to where I painted a cryo, and then I got gone over, and then I got it back because I was like, fuck this. And then they went back over me and wrote a bunch of stupid shit.
Right.
And then, like, the proof is out there on Flickr and stuff. The workers, like, took the orange vinyl stickers and, like, stamped this cryo worse than I've ever seen. So, like, they...
What do you mean?
So they, like, put sections of, like, vinyl stickering over the throwies that were over my shit.
Right. And why did they do that?
As, like a...
Like a diss to y'all?
Yeah, totally. So it was like, you blew the spot, fuck you guys, because like they've never repaired cryos at that spot ever again. So yeah.
So basically, they did some foul ass shit that caught the attention of the workers.
Right.
Now
and that was in the middle of it. So
yeah, and now the workers are like, fuck all y'all.
Yeah.
Type shit.
Yeah, which sucks, because it was like a 10-year gap before cryos ever came back to Colorado, and it's not even to get repaired anymore. It's something totally different.
Right. Why did we talk about why they're coming back, or?
I feel like the lines have just changed direction of where certain things are being shipped, and like certain distributors maybe opened up shop here,
right?
Or like, you know, got bigger here
or moved here.
Yeah, I don't really know like the in and outs that tough. I know that like through the trains needing to be swapped out, that's like the reason for all these lineages coming through, and those are the new beer boxes essentially. So it's like, that's just a shift in the trains. It's not like, oh, we're gonna put out flat trains because they're amazing. It's just what they're doing now.
Right. You gotta love those white panels, right?
Yeah, everybody does right now. It's unfortunate, but it's great.
Is it kind of gotten out of control, or what?
It is. People that definitely don't paint freights as much as or ever are coming out of the woodworks to get them, which props to them, but it also like puts a hurting on the whole noticing of what's happening in the train yards. Because like people that don't know the inner workings of like how to move in a train yard don't come into it with that knowledge, and they'll maybe like park in the wrong place.
Right, or just kind of walk in the front door type shit.
Right, instead of like, yeah, being covert, and you know, and it's not like a shameful thing because they don't know any better, but it also like puts a hurting on the people that have like been around for, you know, decades. Like,
would you say that's the difference between, you know, older cats and the youth? Is they just don't know, or maybe they're a little more like brazen about it? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like you just have, like with freights, you have to be a nerd. Like, and I feel like a lot of people don't want to put in that time and like really learn like the ropes of like how to be respectful. It's like a graffiti thing. Like, fuck this, I'm here, I'm painting my name, like whatever. You know what I mean? But it goes so much deeper than that. And so some people are willing to like learn all that, but not necessarily. Like, it's kind of an older thing, you know, to like be aware of like what's actually going on.
I was gonna say, what's the you know, a bunch of people that paint trains, right?
Yeah.
What's like the oldest cats you know that paint trains?
Probably that are still doing it, I would say
Probably in their 50s.
Yeah, that's viable for sure.
Will you ever stop painting trains?
At this point in my life, I'd probably say no. Honestly, I'm not gonna say my exact age, but I'm like closer to 40 than I am 30. So I didn't think I would keep painting this long, but I'm definitely in it because it's so enjoyable. I'll definitely keep doing it. Like, for me, it's like a personal thing at this point in my life. Like, I don't have any ego behind, like, oh, I need to get my name up so many times or X amount of times a year or whatever. It's just
fun for you. Yeah, just fun.
It's enjoyable. And if I ever pass away anytime soon or before my trains fade, it'll just be another way to like have some sort of longevity, which is kind of nice because like in the scheme of things, we're not really much on this earth.
No, we're not here long.
Right.
And it's really hard to make a mark.
Right. And that's like one of very fleeting ways to do it because eventually the paint will fade and the Rule 80 will come into effect again.
And you'll be out and unfortunately one day, Yep. That's why you keep it going, right?
Try to, for sure. And that's why I think I probably won't stop.
Do you have like a goal?
No.
For like the year?
No.
Do you have like
I used to hold myself very like strict about it and be like almost a job. And be like, oh, you have to paint tonight. Go. But no, not anymore. I have so much other things going on that like it's just everything comes and goes for a reason in my life, I feel like.
Right.
So it's like even the trains that I've like recently gone over people on pertaining to what I was speaking on.
Right.
I'm not like seeking them out. They're coming into these layups that I just am at. You know what I mean? So it's like I kind of just see it as like it's a part of my life that I'll probably hold on to for the rest of,
Rest of it.
Yeah.
Fuck, I had another question for you. I'm a little high right now.
True.
If you don't know, you can check out Be Good Dispensary. They got the good fire for you. We appreciate them.
Yeah, man, blessings.
I was going to ask you. Damn, I can't remember, bro. Do you have any rules that you don't do when you go painting? Or is there anything that if you see when you're about to go painting that will say you're like, nah?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, basically it's just leave no trace. You don't want anybody to know you're there, obviously.
Right. It's definitely more of a stealth mission than kind of city bombing or city graffiti.
If you're in the city, you can just throw your tips, throw your cans, like whatever. Leave your gloves if you wanted to. But when you're in a yard, you definitely don't want to do that as far as workers finding it and being like, oh, people are painting here. So you have to really be on your P's and Q's, if you will. Like, you have to pack up everything.
Well, they really notice that shit.
They will. I don't know if they're going to care. There's, like, rumors around that people are very, they care and things like that. They'll call authority. But from my experience, graffiti writers are a lot more paranoid than things actually are. Because there's drips and tips left in yards all the time. And the train movement is not stopping. It's not going to change over. They might add some security cameras or have a bull come through because of that. But it's not like the freights are ever going to stop because they find tips.
Right. No, yeah, totally. It's going to keep pushing.
That's one huge rule. Like, you have to leave no trace, absolutely, and just respect what's already been on the trains, obviously. Because it's written history. It's like a history book rolling around the country. So you want to respect what's on them, and then obviously your surroundings.
Hell yeah. Hey, what's the most trains you've hit in a 24-hour period?
3. And that's like 3 front to back full pieces. But probably like if I'm just doing throwies or catching tags, like almost 100,
Yeah, man. Do you do scribes at all? Is it or not scribes? Monikers? Yeah.
Not a lot. Like, I never really picked like an alter ego to do that with, which I should.
Because they're enough, right?
Right. So that's the thing. It's like this weird paradox because a lot of people don't really agree with like catching every train or a lot of them on the line because they have this overly paranoia of like, oh, train workers are going to notice and they're going to start.
That's what I've heard.
You know what I mean? I don't really agree with that. It's like, but I am respectful and I don't catch monikers on everything just out of that. But it's like thinking about it and speaking about it, it's like, it's silly. There's like silly rules that everybody abides to that are like, why? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I honestly don't think like the train workers are going to be like, oh man, this guy tagged every single train. He must have been here. Like, I don't think it's stopping anything. Like,
right.
But everybody's very paranoid about
No, I've heard that before quite a few times.
Yeah.
Have you ever, where's a couple like crazy places that you've been in town or maybe even out of state or, you know what I mean, out of the city where you see one of your trains?
Just actually the other day, I was driving back from New Mexico. I was down at Meow Wolf. There was a concert there. Losing my mind a little bit on psychedelics at the show. And I'm driving back super early in the morning, and there's one of my freights, and like a homie who I was with who has no idea of any of
any
this.
Graffiti or anything.
I'm bugging out like, oh, there's one of my freights.
He's like,
he's like, what? I'm like, dude, could you take a picture of that? And
he's like, what?
He's like, why?
I'm like, give you the 20 questions. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Why do you want me to take a picture of this train? Just drive. I'm like,
fool.
Yeah.
If you don't take a picture of the train, you're going to be walking.
Yeah.
You take a picture of it?
Yeah.
Or did you have to fucking...
No, he took a picture. I actually chased it down and like made it even probably more awkward, like to get a good picture.
Did you tell him or what?
I was going like 90 and I'm like, we're going to get a picture of this train real quick.
But no, so you never told him that it was you?
Oh, no, I did.
Oh, okay.
I was like, this is my shit. Like, oh, yeah.
This is what I be telling you about.
No, he didn't really know the depth of like that, but yeah.
What was his reaction when he seen, you know what I mean? Or
he was just surprised that I was like about to crash the car
to
get a picture of this train. Like,
yeah, that's funny, dog.
Because not everybody gets excited about trains.
Right.
It's like a really like weird, like I said, nerdy thing.
Where else? Any place else?
Just when they come back through, it's cool to see them. You know, after like a few years, when like one comes back to a layup, and you're like, damn, it's still floating around. Cool.
Still riding high.
Or like when it comes to a different layup that like you wouldn't really think it was that. You're like, oh, okay. But,
you ever have any of your trains in like any magazines or any like videos or anything like that you spotted?
I don't stay up on like
shit like that
too much on who's documenting what. I'm trying to get into it more, and I'm finding my stuff out there, to be honest. But
here and there,
yeah,
nice.
But yeah, nothing too crazy. I do have like documentation all over Flickr and things like that of people that have flicked my stuff over the years, and then obviously Instagram and things like that. But nothing like, I don't know, maybe. I know that there are some like video things on YouTube of my stuff getting benched that I've been sent, but
tight. If there's a line of trains, and say there's like nine cars, are you painting just one, or if you can, are you painting more than one?
It depends what my bag and budget currently will say, which probably is whack to some, but whatever, you know, it is what it is. Like, we'll see what I can get done with the time frame. Because unfortunately, things don't stay forever here. Like, it's a pretty rapid movement. So if I found 9 trains, which I've found like, you know, almost 100 of those lineages in a place out in Colorado, and like, you're like in a fucking candy store, but you can't paint all of them.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you want to, but yeah, probably just, you know, I'd try and get as much as I could done, but yeah, you can only do so much in a night, you know what I mean?
True that.
Like,
well, shit, man. I think it's about that time.
Cool.
I definitely appreciate you coming on. You know what I mean? We've had a great conversation about weed, and, you know, I'm thinking, did we miss anything?
Not really, man. Just as far as like a message that to be better to people, I want to say for sure.
Yeah.
Especially through graffiti, because life is so fleeting. Like, so many people are lost all the time, and there's so much like ego driven behind graffiti, and it's like everybody could come together. You know what I mean?
No, for sure.
On like some building rather than like being a bully. You know?
Right.
That'd just be one thing that I would leave.
Well, there you have it. Soja in the building.
Bless up.
Whenever you see a fucking train going on by,
I might be on it.
he might be on there. You know what I'm saying? It's your boy JoeThunder, Smoking JoeThunder podcast. Another banger for you, man. We are out of here. See you next time. Peace.